All right, welcome into the Pharmacist and the Photog Games, Grooves, and Grub. I am the Pharmacist Dion Spencer alongside the Photog Steve Moss. And much like our Kentucky Wildcats, Steve Moss has advanced to the second round of battling a kidney stone. This is one I'm really hoping you win.
You have no idea, and I posted something on social media, I don't know, Thursday or Friday, and I'm like, for all of you who have endured the pain and agony of having a kidney stone, my eternal respect. It is absolutely the worst. My doctor said it's the equivalent of either giving natural childbirth, which I'll never experience, and hopefully I'll never experience a gunshot wound.
Yeah, that's
It's brutal.
It's nuts. I don't
So,
definitely.
got my fluids just in case.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll. So speaking of making it to the second weekend, last week we talked about what would be a successful season for the Cats. We addressed my friend Brian's question, and you and I both, and my friend Brian as well, said, I just hope we make it to the Sweet 16. And you and I kind of agreed on that point. And here we are.
You can't argue with what they've done. To me, it's been a business-like approach. They took care of Troy. Otega Owe continuing his good play, despite Lamont Butler going out there and throwing up a goose egg. But then they come back against Illinois, and I thought Butler was spectacular.
Yeah.
But again, it was more of they took care of business, which is kind of what you hope to see at this point of the season. Illinois would make a run and cut the lead, but then Kentucky would ease back out, and it was kind of like that all night. And that to me is just a good sign that team is headed in the right direction. Tough assignment coming up against Tennessee. It's tough. We've talked about this before. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season, but you like their chances.
I do. I think we're in their head at this point.
And it very well could be. Tennessee has never made a Final Four. They'd have to go through Kentucky to get there. Yeah. It's just there's a lot of interesting dynamics about that matchup. I was looking at some numbers before I came over here. Kentucky is 5-0-1 in their last 6 games against the spread that they were an underdog.
And we are a slight underdog.
And Tennessee will be a favorite, obviously, because they're a higher seed. Yeah. Tennessee is 5-10 in the NCAA tournament in their last 15 games when they've been the favorites. So, whatever that means, it looks like Kentucky's going to – I think Kentucky will play well. Do I think they'll win? I don't know. I think this game is going to go down to the last minute of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's a lot of factors when you look at this matchup. One, we came out against Illinois, and the defensive intensity was pretty amazing.
It was.
Maybe unlike anything we've seen all season, which was good. We didn't have Owe did go to the bench early with 2 fouls, but for the most part, I felt like the officials let them play, which I think is key for Kentucky to be able to beat Tennessee again. I think you needed a little bit of a loose whistle there. And we've got to make shots, which we did against Illinois. Going into that game, I had heard some people say that Illinois was prone to turn the ball over, and we proved that with the defense we played. They turned it over quite a bit, and Kentucky capitalized on that. So, they were – other than the fact that we couldn't make layups, we were 14.
This team has had a problem all year with 1-footers. We've talked about this
We
ad
were
nauseum.
14 for 25 on the stat is field goals at the rim. I'm not sure what perimeter they use, but basically you look at it as a gimme. But we missed 11, and I think Amari was responsible for most of those.
Well, and I know you have talked about it. You have texted me many times, like, dunk the ball.
Yeah.
But I saw more people last game tweeting that or putting that on social media, like, what is he doing? Why is he trying to finesse a layup when you're 7 foot? Yeah. Tear the damn rim off the off the
and
backboard.
they said he tweaked his back.
Yeah,
in the first. I don't know if it was during the Troy game or prior to the Troy game. At least, and this could be just, and I could totally see him doing this. It could be Coach Pope just kind of trying to cover his guy a little bit. Now I did see him on the bench at one point during the Illinois game with a wrap on. So who knows? But still, I'm like, dude, you're 7 foot tall. Obviously, on those back-to-back fast breaks against Illinois, he hammered it down, and his elbow was above the rim. So, he could jump for sure. But that's my only complaint about that game was, and it wasn't just him, but we did miss some layups that you're just like, man, you got to make those.
Yeah, I thought everyone who played contributed.
Yeah,
that was a key. Even Colin Chandler, who I've picked on all year, he came in and he was pretty steady.
Yeah,
made shots, played D, stayed in front of his guy. So
and Brea, when Illinois did cut the lead at one point there in the second half, Brea he pulled an Otega away, put the team on his shoulders for a 10-point stretch, and just really, I felt like he kind of turned the tide a little bit there. But
he was making shots in the lane. He was making shots from the perimeter. He was very steady. Maybe it's one of those moments where he takes another step at the right time of the season. And maybe he's made a little money there. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's very possible. Just to reiterate what you're saying, guys stepping up and making things happen. Owe was his typical self, and even Amari missing the layups, he still had 8 points, 10 boards, and 6 assists. So, doing his thing for sure. Carr, I thought, even though he only scored 4 points, man, his game was so much more than what showed up in the box score. Yeah. That dude was impressive because his defense, even just little things, if it wasn't a block shot, he disrupted a lot of stuff. So
he was kind of a glue guy.
Yeah.
A steadying force where, all the other guys were having some of their best days and he's just making sure that he doesn't hurt you.
Yeah. So it was impressive to watch. Like I said, the defense was key. I think we're going to need a lot more of that on Friday night. We're recording this on a Tuesday prior to the Sweet 16 games kicking off Thursday night. But yeah, we need that D to step up in much the same way that it did against Illinois. I mean, it created 14 turnovers with 26 points off those turnovers. So that's, they've always said defense wins championships, and at least defense got us to the Sweet 16.
Well, and I've always thought that guards get you there, and it's a good sign that Lamont Butler he had a great game last time out. Kobe Brea, it's like you can almost see that the consistency now is starting to it's there.
I think there's a confidence too with the guys. They believe in each other.
Sure.
We've had a handful of teams like that at Kentucky over the years where you feel like there's a genuine, excitement amongst the team when they see their teammates playing well. They seem to get pumped up for each other, which is good to see them share the ball and score and just do everything they need to do. Cool stat, and I know you saw this, was Kentucky became the first Sweet 16 team ever that returned 0 points from its previous squad.
Yeah, I did see that.
That's pretty amazing.
There were several people to point out, we're in an era of NIL, so that may be broken next year. Who knows?
True, absolutely, and
but to your point, we've talked about this before too. What Mark Pope has done, throwing this team together in a short period of time, going out and trying to get some chemistry between these guys in a short period of time. He did a remarkable job, and we said it last week. If they got to the first weekend or the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, I consider that a success. I think the other thing is the fact that he got all these guys to buy in. He dealt with injuries, and these dudes seem to really like playing with each other.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think by all accounts, Kentucky's had a heck of a year.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean,
and he's going to get paid too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, at this point, I'm happy. I'm happy with where we are now. That said, I don't want it to end against Tennessee.
Right.
I'd be much more content if we lose the following weekend to either Houston or Purdue. Can't lose to Tennessee. That's
for a school that's never made a Final Four. You don't want that on their resume,
right. No, I mean, I'm so tired of seeing social media posts about Tennessee fans saying, well, why aren't we mentioned in the same breath as the Blue Bloods? And we're like, come on,
because you're not a Blue Blood.
You got to. Let's start with one Final Four, and I mean,
right. We're not going to anoint you a Blue Blood just because you're a 3 seed.
Yeah, that's just absurd. So yeah, I mean, Tennessee ranks pretty high on my my axis of evil as far as teams that I despise. I mean, I honestly have fewer problems with Duke than I do with Tennessee. I mean, for me, it's obviously it's Louisville, and then it's probably Tennessee behind Louisville.
Right.
Then you start. It used to be Indiana, but they're not relevant anymore. So
they're really not.
No, they haven't. I mean, you hang a banner for beating us on a last-second shot. How many years ago? I don't know.
Is there a banner hanging because of that?
Well, they made T-shirts about it, I think, for sure. But anyway.
Well, and I mentioned that Pope was going to get paid. He's got a clause in his contract that says if they make the Sweet 16, his contract automatically renews one more year. Plus, he gets a $50,000 buyout, a $50,000 bonus. So he's going to get roughly guaranteed at least $4.7 million out of this deal thanks for making it to
two ball games. Yeah, I mean, and that $50,000 bonus will cover the ice cream and the gas money.
Oh yeah, paid for. Who does that?
It's just nuts.
Mark Pope earlier this season promised to buy everyone who stayed after a game at Rupp, who stayed to listen to the post-game coaches show there in the arena, that go get in line and I'll buy you some ice cream. Well, to encourage people to go to these NCAA tournament games, he said, I'll pay your gas.
Yeah, and I saw some social media posts where they actually followed up on that with at least some fans. There were exchanges where they were like, just show us that you have the tickets, and then they reimburse those fans for, I guess, government-based mileage rates or whatever. But, pretty awesome. I mean, Pope gets it. He does. What Kentucky – I mean, we are nuts. Kentucky fans are insane, which is no more evident than by the fact that – they got Amari Williams, who is from Great Britain, if you haven't heard him talk or paid attention. And one of his go-to breakfast cereals growing up is a cereal called Weetabix.
Yep.
Which looks like I don't even know, man. It
looks like a Brillo pad.
Yeah, I mean, it just does not look good in any way, shape, or form.
If you don't know what that is, it's steel wool.
Yeah, but they got him some of it before one of the games this weekend, and then
I thought it was the Illinois game.
Kentucky fans took that cereal to the number one selling cereal on Amazon.
Yep.
They tripled their daily sales of Weetabix. I mean,
and I was even thinking about going to an import store earlier today to try to find a box just to have here. And I forgot to do that.
Yeah, we need to get a box and then, I mean, you need to swing some connections and get it autographed for us. And we can, I'll shadow box some Weetabix down here in the pharmacy.
Box of that on cereal.
We can put it up. But anyway.
Yeah, it's a very cool little side story.
There's a lot of fun things going on with this team.
It was like, last year Kentucky fans bought a billboard for Big Z.
To get Big Z.
And I'm hearing, I saw someone post today that he wants to start a GoFundMe to raise money to buy a billboard for Jackson Robinson, since he's not getting to play because of a wrist injury. So Kentucky fans will go to literally the end of the earth.
Yeah, as a player, if you come to Kentucky and it doesn't take a lot to endear yourself to Kentucky fans, and if you do, you can make a pretty decent living, I think, along the way, because you have been, proud to wear Kentucky across your chest.
That's why a lot of these players stay here or come back because they know the fans. Well, they've all said to a person, like when you don't get that adulation and you don't hear the cheering anymore, you miss it. So a lot of them migrate back. For that reason.
And we were
Willie
talking
Cauley-Stein
about.
In the,
and Willie especially
the basketball tournament. He loved it.
Yeah, and we were talking just a little bit before we started about guys that, and I said I'm excited about what like junior year Colin Chandler looks like, because I don't see Colin having money just thrown at him by a bigger, there aren't many bigger programs than Kentucky, and the ones that are bigger than Kentucky and might have the money, they're not going to throw it at Colin Chandler.
Right.
And Otega Owe has one more year of eligibility remaining. He's been, for the most part, the man, and he's going to get paid. These guys will always have a special place in the hearts of Kentucky fans, that's for sure, because like I've said many, many times, I thought this season was shaping up to be just an absolute disaster. And this has been one of the most fun seasons in my 45 years of watching Kentucky basketball. It's just been that good. So, I don't know. I mean, NIL, it's got its good and its bad, but hopefully the good will keep some of our players here, and hopefully then it will also lure some good players into Kentucky, which it's a whole nother debate about the fact that the portal opened before the tournament ended, which I didn't realize that was going to happen, and it's wrong. It's 100% wrong to have the portal open.
Yeah, not only that, but you've got coaches moving too. Yeah. I mean, we saw, McNeese State lost their coach before the tournament even began. Yeah. And he coaches in the tournament. Yeah. It's something has to be done. I saw something today, a business writer looking at the business of basketball, saying that already there are kids in the 2025 class who are wanting $2 to $3 million guarantees to come play. And, at some point, somebody's got to get a handle on this.
Yeah, I mean, the portal opened yesterday, Monday. I don't know what time, in the morning, I'm assuming. But it's been open for a little over 24 hours. I guess you might as well say close to 48 hours at this point. And I read today that there are already 700 players in the portal.
Surprised.
And then we're not done. There are guys who are in this Sweet 16 that at least are saying, I'm going to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, they're auditioning now.
Yeah, they're going to, somebody who goes on a just absolute tear over the next 2 weeks could make himself several $1 million. And if Kentucky wants to pay some of those guys, I'm all for it. Let's bring them on in, and I think Pope can, take a little bit of what he did this year, the young guys, the experienced guys, and put them together and see what we get. So anyway, one little question we posed to each other was, do you think there are any surprises? There's not a Cinderella this year in the Sweet 16.
No. I mean, you could say like a BYU, but that would be a stretch.
Right.
The thing is, all the power conferences are represented.
Right.
That's the thing. I mean, obviously the SEC has 7 of the 16, but then, the Big 12, the Big 10, I think have 4 each.
Right. I mean,
to me, the biggest surprise would be the ACC only has Duke left.
Right. Which, on the flip side, you could say, well, that's not surprising at all. If you watched
they're not very good.
Basketball
that league
this
is
year.
Not good.
I saw a tweet. A friend tweeted out the fact that Duke was making everybody look like church league, and somebody said, well, that's appropriate because that's all they played all season was church
True.
league. I mean, and when they played somebody good like Kentucky, they got beat.
I mean, you had mentioned Arkansas as a possible Cinderella.
That would be my biggest surprise.
They started out 0-5 in the league, and then there are all the questions surrounding Calipari and can he win? Can he win a game in the NCAA tournament? Yeah, I suppose they're a 10 seed, so they're as good as a Cinderella as anyone.
Right. I mean, that's the closest we've got this year, I think, to a Cinderella.
I think midnight's coming though for them.
I would agree. I don't know that it's not going to be against Texas Tech. I don't think. I honestly,
and he's doing all of it without his best player.
Well, but I saw that he's going to play.
Oh well, okay.
They said Thero's going to play next game, so they are going to be at full strength, legitimately for the first time all season. Because back when Thero and Boogie were both playing, they didn't have John L. Davis. I don't think he was out at that point. So this will be the first time. And I read something today that said there's no tape on the Arkansas team that's going to hit the floor
because they haven't played together.
That's
cool.
So, it just depends on what kind of chip they've got on their shoulder at this point. But yeah, I think they're easily to me the biggest surprise of the tournament. The rest of the Sweet 16, for the most part, it's a fairly, somewhat chalk bracket.
Yeah, it's pretty chalky.
I mean,
for sure.
Like you said, you got BYU in there. You've got, I think is it Maryland? Maryland's a 4. Ole Miss was a little bit of a surprise to me because, like I've said before, SEC teams just historically have underperformed in the NCAA tournament. So the fact that Ole Miss, who's not, overly familiar, coach, but yeah, they've got a good coach. And the SEC is only going to get tougher now that Sean Miller has been hired at Texas. So, for people who are thinking maybe this year was a one-off for the SEC, I hate to tell you, it's not. They keep dragging in, when every school in the SEC eventually has a stellar coach, I don't know what it's going to be tough to win in that league for sure.
Yeah.
But I can't really, looking at the Sweet 16, I can't really say that I can argue for like a reseeding, or I feel like the committee, for the most part, they got it right. I mean, the fact that Arkansas came in as a 10, that's where they deserve. I mean, 10 might have been generous.
But I'm not buying Arkansas.
Yeah, no.
I'm not buying Arkansas. No. I'm not buying Auburn either.
Yeah. That one's tough. I mean, I can't. If I had to look at that bracket, man, Tom Izzo, Michigan State, you just can't count out Izzo. That dude.
They grind it out,
yeah,
and they're going to be playing Ole Miss.
Yeah,
I could see them just grinding it. It's a half court game, and I could see Sparty moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping. Like I said, I don't know enough about Texas Tech to know what they can throw at Arkansas. So I'm counting my chickens that if they end up meeting Florida, that Florida does what Florida should do and takes them out. But on the other side, BYU and Bama, that was an interesting matchup.
It is. Bama wants to go and BYU wants to play slow, and
yeah. The matchups are good. They're interesting. Yeah. Oddly enough, this is the first time that UK and Tennessee have ever met in the NCAA tournament. So, with that many SEC teams in the tournament, it had to happen this year that we're going to have some matchups against one another. So, we have the potential for for 3 out of the 4 regions
having head-to-head,
having some head-to-head matchups with SEC teams. So, pretty awesome to see what's going on in the SEC this year.
The latest KenPom has Duke now as its number 1 team. Houston, the best defensive team in the country. Duke, the number one offensive efficiency team in the country. Florida, number 2. Auburn, number 3. Tennessee, the 3rd best defensive team in the country. So they've got Kentucky ranked 15 out of 16.
Defensively?
No. Just in general. They're
just
ranked
overall.
15 overall.
I was going to say, because for like the last month and a half, Kentucky's gone on this little mini run. And they've
got them ranked 45th defensively.
Wow. That seems low.
Yeah.
I don't know what statistics I was reading or what the qualifications were, but I saw something that from a certain period of like 4 to 5 weeks ago, Kentucky's been like the 11th best team defensively in the country. Of course, I guess they've got to average that out
based
over the
on
whole season.
Yeah.
Because we did throw up some stinkers early and gave up a lot of points to teams that we shouldn't have. But no, this I've seen a lot of things in the last few days about, saying that the fact that there was no real Cinderella, that, college basketball as we know it is dead. And, I disagree. I just feel like this year that the committee, for the most part, other than letting North Carolina in, I feel like they did a pretty good job of seeding, which is bearing itself out in this Sweet 16. I don't have a whole lot of complaints. I mean, teams that you aren't used to seeing at this point are in there. I mean, granted, we don't have a San Diego State like we did a few years ago, but
right.
That doesn't happen very often anyway. So I think overall, they're eventually going to have to rein in the NIL, but for now, we just got to go with it and try to do what we can with it and make it work to our benefit. But
let me get your take on Pitino and Calipari.
That was disappointing for me.
You wanted Rick to win.
I wanted Rick to win. I did. And not only that, but just St. John's had such a good season. They just they came in and, they couldn't buy a basket. I mean, God, they got up like 80 attempts in that game.
Yeah.
And they
it's one of the reasons he benched his best player.
Yeah. They just they shot less than 30% in that game. And they were kind of doing like Kentucky has done some. They were missing layups. They were missing really makeable shots. And kudos to Arkansas. They came out and they did what they needed to do, and they didn't wilt at the end. I kept waiting for the final 3-4 minutes of a Cal team not being able to inbound the ball or run a play, and they capitalized. I will say that I don't necessarily think it was so much Arkansas doing all the right things as it was St. John's just not doing any of the right things.
Well, and I was a little disappointed with Rick that he continued to allow those guys to throw up threes.
Yeah.
To your point, they weren't making shots, so you have to start driving the ball. But he benches his best player,
which I get it. I mean, I understand the guy's had a bad game, but he's your best player. You need to
Lewis
go down.
Jr.
You need to go down fighting with him on the floor, because
3 of 17 from the floor is what he finished.
So I feel like that was questionable, and but they have to live with it ultimately.
Cal now becomes only the second coach to take 4 schools to the Sweet 16.
That's kind of hard to believe. I mean,
Eddie Sutton is the other guy, which is ironic because they both have Arkansas and Kentucky in their resume. I was quite surprised that St. John's moment was too big for him, I guess.
Yeah, that's it was.
And this is a school that won the Big East, and finished 18-2 in the Big East. And Arkansas, we talked about it, started out 0-5 in the SEC, and it's like, dang, is Cal going to win a game? But now he's got the last laugh. He beats Kentucky in Lexington, and he beats Rick Pitino when it matters most in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we can hope for is a couple of upsets along the way. Arkansas continues to play well, and then we get an Arkansas-Kentucky matchup in the final game, and we get revenge. That would
draw a big TV audience, but
that would be. I did see. Speaking of TV audiences, I saw that you probably have the more correct numbers than me. Go ahead with that.
This year's tournament so far is at a 32-year high, averaging 9.4 million viewers a game. So that's the highest since 1993. And I think, you could probably say, with a chalky bracket and with NIL and more players staying in school longer, that's probably a result, is that you've got more eyeballs on the TV.
Well, did you see the number about the Kentucky game?
Oh, that it was the highest rated?
Yeah, the Kentucky-Illinois game has been the most watched. I don't know if I think it's either – I don't know what the numbers are, how they use them, but basically it's been, if not the most watched game, one of the top 2 or 3 most watched games of this tournament.
Yeah, I figured.
It was a Kentucky-Illinois game.
Especially with Illinois and, people in Chicago and Midwest.
So, anyway, we'll see what happens Friday night, roughly around 7:30-ish, Kentucky against Tennessee. See if we can keep this magical little ride running.
7:39 on TBS.
Yeah. I'm so glad it wasn't that, because initially they were reporting that we were going to be the late game.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I'm like, really?
I was like, man, come on, but thankfully they switched that around, and we got the early game.
And you get Andrew Catalan, Steve Lapis, and Evan Washburn, your sidelines guy. They didn't bother me too much. They were pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone back and
forth on this. Can't get Bill Raftery every night.
I don't. I've made no bones about the fact that over the last 3 years, I can count on one hand the number of games I've watched where I've had the volume up on the television. I usually have the volume muted. I'm listening to music.
Got Scorpions on the box.
But against the for the Kentucky-Illinois game, I did. My wife wanted to come down here and watch with me, and she doesn't like to do the music and watch a game thing. So I turned up the volume, and luckily, at least in my mind, we had the NBA crew of Kevin Harlan, Kevin Bonner, and Stan Van Gundy, which for my money, on NBA broadcasts, they are as good as it gets. And I thought they did a fantastic job on because sometimes you get these NBA crews that maybe haven't brushed up on
the college
these teams as much as they should have, but I felt like those guys, they knew their stuff, or they had really good people barking in their earpiece with the right stats at the right time.
Well, Kevin Harlan, of course, he just knows when to flip that switch and turn it on.
He's the guy who will, in a football game, if a squirrel gets on the field, he will call the squirrel's run.
That's right.
Towards the end zone. So,
and Van Gundy's a former coach, so he can X and O it with the best of them, and Bonner is just a solid guy.
Yeah, so
I agree with you.
I thought that was a good crew. I didn't mind listening to that game at all, and I even said something on social media, the fact that if I could get those guys on every Kentucky game, I would listen with the volume up more often. So, quickly, what'd you think about the Hurley outburst?
Yeah, I meant to bring that up. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I think he has officially deteriorated now into public enemy number one in terms of coaches. He's starting to tread for me into that Bob Knight era.
Yeah.
The area.
Yeah.
I don't care that you can mouth off about we didn't play well or whatever. The lighting was bad or the floor was slick or the ball was flat. But then you start broaching the officiating, and then you say, don't let them F you like they did us.
Yeah.
Knowing that everybody within earshot can hear you.
Right.
And this comes on the heels of him, saying, don't talk to me like that because I'm the best coach in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's becoming like he's becoming a real jerk.
Yeah. And then based on what's coming out in the media, apparently then his sports information director at UConn
Double down.
and tried to come, I guess, to his defense, and in the process threatened the reporter who videoed that and said, well, that was a private moment. You shouldn't have videoed that. There shouldn't have been any cameras there. Dude, there are cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
you can't be – there's a difference between passion and being an a-hole.
Well, I can tell you from having been in those situations where you want to get the team coming through the breezeway, coming off the floor, going out to the floor, and you're standing in the breezeway, whether you have a camera or you have a phone camera, there are dozens of people who probably were in the vicinity. If they didn't have a phone camera up, they got them somewhere else. But yes, to your point, there are a lot of people in those situations. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
He knew what he was doing. He got caught. He realized, oh, crap,
Yeah.
I've screwed up here. And then his sports information guy doubles down and says, do not post that or I will have your rear end.
Yeah, he said, I'll ruin your career.
Right.
Is what
that's
the quote.
That is pretty low class.
Yeah. I mean, and, at this point, UConn has never lost a basketball game because they didn't perform well. That's my take home from this, because when
somebody else has screwed it up
at the beginning of the season, when they went out and absolutely got their butts handed to them in Hawaii,
he immediately started.
He just started in on the fact that it was just a terrible setup and that blah blah blah, and I'm just like, dude, let's just face it, people have caught up to you this season, and I mean, I'll be the first to admit when Kentucky had to start looking for a new coach, and everybody said target number one is going to be Hurley, and I thought, great, he's won back-to-back championships. Yes, that's who we want. But man, did we dodge a bullet with that.
Well, I had also heard, though, in between him telling Kentucky no and everybody wringing their hands like, who are we going to get, that Hurley comes with baggage, that his wife is like that she doesn't want to leave the city. It was, we had all heard the rumors when Rick Pitino was here that his wife Joanne didn't like Kentucky, didn't like Lexington because it was backwards, and she's a big city woman, and that's all well and good. Hurley wouldn't have played well here, and in hindsight, you're right. It's a good thing that he told us no, because I just couldn't see he and Mitch Barnhart existing or coexisting in a situation where Mitch previously with Calipari, they didn't talk.
Right.
It would have been brutal.
Yeah, and
it would have run Mitch out of his office.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the fact that Hurley said no to Kentucky, and then he said no to the Lakers over the summer. He said no. He could have been coaching LeBron and Luka, and he said no to the Lakers. And so I was laughing because in his official post-game press conference, he cried. And I called it. I commented to someone. I said he's going to cry and crocodile tears, and I said in reality those may have been real tears because he may have been crying about how much money he left on the table at both UK and in LA.
Good. Could be.
But yeah, I'm very thankful that that's not our guy.
Look, ain't nobody out there sad about it.
Yeah,
nobody's sad about him losing.
Yeah,
except him.
Yeah,
I thought it's not the first time it's happened this year. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, he's lost his mind.
It's a continual thing with him.
There's something about a sore loser.
Right.
You compare and contrast a guy like Mark Pope to a guy like Dan Hurley, and there is no comparison.
Right. Pope accepts responsibility. When the Cats have lost this year, games they shouldn't have lost, he said that's on me.
A spoiled little brat coaching UConn.
Absolutely.
And you know what? They're going home.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Yeah, awesome. Now, if we can just get rid of Arkansas and Duke, I'll be happy. Literally, if we can get rid of those two, I'm okay with whatever might happen after that point. So
Yeah.
anyway, UK women lost in their second round game. Very disappointing overtime loss to Kansas State.
Yep.
80-79. I watched a good part of that game. Georgia Amoore, who's been the star all season, she struggled a little bit, and it was 7 for 23 from the field, and I think 3 of her made buckets came in the overtime. So, lesson to Rick Pitino, maybe even though your star's having a bad day, leave them in there. They might give you a shot. But the Cats just the ladies just got out-rebounded. Well, actually, they out-rebounded Kansas State, but they had more turnovers, and they also gave up 6 more three-pointers than they made, which was the big thing. They just made no adjustment in the second half to stop the three. So Kenny Brooks'
was a good year.
It was a good year. Good year for when you
it-
look at Kentucky women's basketball historically. Good year, especially for a first-year coach. Much like Mark Pope.
they're traveling down parallel roads where you got to throw together a team in a short amount of time, and Kenny Brooks is respected and well liked, so he's able to attract a couple of really, really top-notch players. Georgia Amoore being one. The good news is he's got most of those girls coming back.
Yeah.
Starting with
for
Clara
the ones
Strack.
that have entered the portal today.
Well, and Silva played a handful of minutes here and there. I don't know that she fits into what he's trying to get done. And the other player, no disrespect, but I don't remember the
Her name. Right. And so my thought on that today is like, you hate to lose. There aren't a lot of 6'7" centers out there in women's basketball. So you hate to lose Silva in that regard, but I also have to wonder. She
struggles getting up and down the court.
Yeah, I have to wonder, though, if there aren't going to be some players out there that maybe aren't 6'7", but are more effective.
Yes.
That are going to look at Kentucky now
Yep.
because of what Coach Brooks has done and what Kentucky has done this season, and ultimately, it's going to work out.
Sure.
And I think he's going to bring some players in that will function in his system. Much like I've got faith in what he's doing, and I think there will be players who will look at it and say, I can accomplish what I want to accomplish at Kentucky. Good season overall for them.
I tried to make it through the Kansas State game, and somewhere near the end of the first half, it just became so unbearable.
Oh, because you were, that's right. You were there. You were there working. Yeah.
But the pain from a kidney stone is just a little more intense than that environment, and I just couldn't do it. Ended up going to the ER that night. It was disappointing. They just ran into a better team.
Yeah,
at that point.
On that given day, Kansas State was better, and Kansas State had some experience. I mean, I think they had lost kind of a heartbreaker last season, so several of those ladies on that team, it was fresh in their minds.
Sure.
The disappointment. So I think they came out with some intensity, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, we'll have another good weekend for the Cats this week, and we'll have just a Cinderella. At that point, I would say, yes, we've got a Cinderella if the Cats can squeak out a next weekend for sure. That would exceed any and all expectations.
And playing in Indianapolis, it's going to be wall to wall blue in there.
Now, I would think Purdue fans should show up. It is Indianapolis,
but Purdue is not Indiana.
Yeah.
If it was IU, you'd have 3 times the number of fans. But it'll be a good atmosphere for Kentucky for sure.
What else? Anything else sports-wise? The only other thing that I don't think we mentioned. Did we mention last week about George Forman passing away? Or that happened? I don't think that had happened. I think that happened after we recorded last week. But
I think it was actually the day of.
It might have been the day of.
But we didn't touch on it.
George Forman, one of the
man
most
who named all of his kids George.
George. He had like 4 sons named George.
And a daughter named Georgina.
Yeah. Just literally one of the most legendary and lovable
Yes.
heavyweight boxers
Yes.
of all time. Passed away last week, and I was kind of surprised because it was like 75, early
Relatively
to mid-70s.
young.
I mean, when you
Yeah.
look at things, I mean, so yeah, it was kind of surprising, just from an age standpoint. But that was sad to see because he was always such a lovable guy, and then he came back in his 40s and recaptured the heavyweight crown, and back when boxing was still, not a internet joke like it is now.
Yeah.
So kind of sad to see some of those legends
Yeah,
pass
and
away.
then his life took a wild turn. When he lent his name to those indoor, they're not even a grill.
Yeah, it was
It's
just
a heating
fryer.
unit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had one. I mean,
Yeah, everybody had
we
one.
had one,
And I
which
think
is why he made a couple $100 million.
Yeah, I was going to say he made $200 million just off. Yeah, you can use my name.
Yeah.
No problem.
He did some infomercials, and
Right.
I don't think he had
And
anything
he's
to
just
do with it.
he was one of those larger than life guys who everybody just enjoyed hearing talk, and obviously he was a great boxer.
Yeah,
That was a golden era of boxing for sure. When
Absolutely.
you have him and Ali and Frazier.
well, it was must-see TV back then. We're really showing our age. When there were 3 channels, and they actually you didn't have to pay to watch the title matches. I mean, I can remember as a kid watching legitimate boxing championships on regular TV. And yeah, you saw some of the greatest fights ever. That walked into the early years of Mike Tyson, and just a golden era, which I don't know that we'll ever see that again in boxing for
No.
sure.
I think boxing's all but dead.
Yeah, for the most part, I think you're right. I got, for me, sports as we close in on these last couple of weeks of basketball, we hit kind of an area where it's kind of stale on the sports. I mean, unless you're a golf fan like me, at least we're a few
Baseball
weeks. Yeah.
kicks off this week.
Yeah, the baseball does start this week. I'm excited because as a former avid golfer, I don't play very much anymore, but we're just a few weeks away now from the Masters, which to me that's the official start of spring. So I always get pumped up about watching the Masters. There's something really special about that. I was fortunate enough to attend a Sunday at the Masters. It's been 25 years ago now, but it's a memory that will never, ever leave me. It's unlike anything. TV, when you say TV doesn't do something justice, I don't know there's any place that TV doesn't do justice more than Augusta National.
There's not a blade of grass out of place.
I watched a guy with a leaf blower push sand in one of the bunkers up to the very edge like he was painting a picture.
Oh, that's crazy.
And
I'd always heard those stories from there. How
when we get closer to the Masters, I will share a little bit of my experience there because it was really special. I'm very thankful that I got to do it, and I hope that I get to do it again someday, even for a practice round.
did you do the Ryder Cup when it was at Valhalla?
I did not.
Okay, so see, that is my all-time favorite memory of covering any event. That event was so spectacular because you had people from all over the planet there.
Yeah.
Doing things you're told you can't do on a golf course.
Yeah, at a golf tournament, right.
Like jeering.
Yeah.
You can cheer, but now you're jeering and all of the Europeans coming over, the Swedes dressed in their traditional clothing and groups like that. It was a great week.
Yeah.
And I'll just remember just what a spectacular event that was, and you're going, this is the Ryder Cup, man.
Yeah. And I hope I don't know that we'll ever see it again at least at Valhalla.
No, because Valhalla's been sold.
Right, it's been sold, so it's no longer owned by the PGA, which as a venue for that type of event, I think Valhalla is really good. Now,
Yes.
as for the PGA Championship, those guys just eat it up. They shoot 20 under par, but
Yeah, you're playing different golf when you're playing Ryder
at the
Cup.
Ryder Cup, it offers all these really cool risk reward holes, and the environment's just definitely different for sure. But yeah, cool.
I didn't
very
mean
cool.
to deviate, but you brought up golf and you loved the Masters. I've never stepped foot on Augusta National. We have a TV affiliate there, but they don't even allow those people on the course. That's how exclusive it is.
I would like I said, when we get closer, maybe the week before the Masters, I'll tell my story about how I ended up there, and I've always heard that the Masters during actual tournament week. I know a lot of people who have been to the Masters for the practice rounds. To get on the grounds during the actual tournament round ranks up there with scoring a Super Bowl ticket as far as the two hardest tickets in sports. So as the years have gone by, I've been very it has really sunk in, what I got to see. And I even went without saying I ended up getting a pin flag. I wanted a pin flag, and because I knew that year, the year that I went was 2000. The PGA Championship, which at that point was played at the end of the season, was going to be at Valhalla in Louisville. So I thought, it'd be really cool if I could go to Valhalla and get a flag from each one of the majors and then get the champions to sign. So 2000, VJ holds off a charge from Tiger and wins at Augusta. But then Tiger goes on and wins the British and the U.S. Open by a record margin, and then ultimately wins at Valhalla. But I got closer to getting Tiger to sign those flags than I ever thought I would. So anyway, talk about that. But
that's a hard autograph to get.
Yeah, hard autograph to get. And I still have those flags, and
I see them.
I will eventually get. I'll eventually get my Tiger flags autographed. I mean, whether he's at doing a meet and greet somewhere when he's 90 years old.
I was going to say at the old folks' home.
I'm going to get it. But anyway. All right, sports. I think we've beat that to death. We knew that was going to take up a lot of the time tonight, so we didn't have a whole lot else planned. I did hit the record show that I talked about last week. I went up to Cincinnati, or north of Cincinnati, and hit the Plaid Room Records, which is in Loveland, Ohio. I went to their warehouse sale, which I guess they end up with a lot of stuff when you're a record store and you buy collections. The good stuff you put in your store and you sell, and you end up with a lot of garbage. And they've got this big warehouse, and it's nothing but a warehouse. I mean, there's no heat.
I texted Dion saying, "Hey, if they have this or this, let me know." And he's like, "They don't have anything you like."
No, there was a lot of. I mean, I looked through. I would guess over the course of about 4 to 5 hours, I probably flipped through probably 20 or 30,000 records, maybe more, and I didn't get to all of them.
Wow.
They claim that they've got over 100,000 in that warehouse, which I believe, because they probably had close to that just in the little 45s.
I can smell it now.
Oh yeah. It was just musty, and it was your grandma's basement.
That's right,
for sure. But this warehouse has no heat, which I found that out the last time I went back in the fall, and so this time I was a little more prepared. I had enough clothes on and everything, but I found some pretty cool stuff. I went through there and I picked up about 25 titles, but I only spent maybe $70. So, and I've listened to more than half of them at this point, and the quality has been. I've been really surprised because we're talking about everything in that warehouse sale is either $1 or $3. $3 ones are the nice ones,
Oh, okay.
But even some of those, I pulled out and looked at them. I thought, man, this may sound like garbage because it looks like it's kind of rough. And everything I've played so far has been really solid. So you can't complain. I'll probably do it again especially when it's a little bit warmer out. It would be a little nicer to stick around in there for a while, but. Yeah, so I picked up some good stuff. When Steve got here tonight, I was listening to one that I picked up at Pops over in Lexington. I was listening to the new Jason Isbell solo album, Foxes in the Snow, I think is the actual title.
That's it.
And it's very good. And like I was telling Steve, with Isbell stuff, you've got to listen to the lyrics, and you got to listen to it multiple times to really soak it all in and get the story and the picture he's painting. So I've listened to it a couple times. Still need a few more to kind of take that all in. Last week, I made it out a couple times. Of course, you didn't go anywhere last week.
Dude, yes, I did. I went to the ER twice.
How's the food?
They don't have good food.
No food at the ER? I went out a couple times last week. My wife and I went out. We hit in Lexington. We hit the Sedona Taphouse. Now, we hit the one over on Newtown, which a lot of people know that there are 2 Sedona Taphouses in Lexington. There's one on Newtown. There's one over on Harrodsburg in the Palomar Center. They are not owned by the same people. I don't know really how that works.
Well, and you can tell
franchise world, but yeah, the one on Newtown. I mean, I continue to go there because it's closer, much closer to Georgetown and where I live, so it's easy for my wife and I to meet over there, like after I've gotten off work. But yeah, it's just a different experience for sure. I usually have to explain to the wait staff at the Newtown location that, yes, it is happy hour now. It says so here on your website.
Oh, my goodness.
That kind of thing. But anyway, they've got some great deals on happy hour food.
Are you being serious?
What's that?
On the happy hour?
Yeah, I've had to show them on their website.
Like,
it's
look at the clock.
It's
it
happy
says
hour. It's
4 o'clock here.
This time, yeah. So they have changed their happy hour a little bit so that it does make it more obvious that, yes, it's happy hour. But anyway,
the clock on the wall would make it obvious.
Yeah. But as a beer nerd, I've been in there a couple times and gotten
a lot of beer.
They got a lot of beer. But if you are a true beer nerd, you got to pay attention because a lot of the beer they have has been sitting there about as long as they've been there.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Some of it's really old, and I've gotten a couple of really old beers in that place.
Is that where the term skunk beer comes into play?
Well, and with canned beer, you can't skunk a beer anymore because light is what skunks the beer. But if you take an IPA, I don't care if it's in a can or what, once it gets past, 6 months is the absolute tops, and that's for a big brewery like a Sierra Nevada or somebody like that. Most IPAs have a shelf life of about 3 months, and I was served an IPA once at the Sedona Taphouse on Newtown that was over 2 years old, and because I took the first sip and I immediately lifted the can up looking for a stamped date and saw that it was over 2 years old. And so, yeah, but they've got some good food. And I will say that my experience last week was probably better than what's that?
And I would question that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The food part of it.
Well, my food this last trip was very good. Our food has always been good. Service has always been, okay. We try to go in there with the right mindset in that, hey, we're just going to sit here and chill for a little bit. They do have $4 sangria, which my wife enjoys, and it's actually pretty tasty. So, you get enough $4 sangria, and you don't really care if it takes a little bit longer to get your food. But my food's always been pretty solid there. The service isn't always great, but I had a really nice seared ahi tuna. And they've got some good fries, so
they do have good fries.
Their truffle fries are pretty awesome. And I stuck with the draft list this go around, and they had some Country Boy, one of their hazy New England IPAs called Witness the Citrus. So I had a couple of those on the happy hour menu, so that was nice. And then for the first UK game last Friday night, I guess it was, against Troy, we did the first half out at the Country Boy Tap Room here in Georgetown, and shared some of their pulled pork nachos, which was pretty solid, but good stuff all around.
Country Boy Kitchen in Georgetown is sneaky good.
Yeah, they've got some good stuff. Yeah. It's bar food, but they've got some things on there, especially when they throw in some of their specials. Their burgers, their special burgers that Big Steve does over there are, he comes up with some smoked meat options to throw on those burgers that pretty impressive. So if you're in the Georgetown, Lexington area, or anywhere really within a reasonable drive of Georgetown, and you've not been to the Country Boy Tap Room, I would certainly say come on over and check it out, because it's always a good time, especially when there's a game going on. Place was packed.
Yeah.
Energy was good, and that's kind of what I wanted, because, I mean, let's face it, our last several years in the NCAA tournament haven't gone the way we wanted, and the anxiety was high. It was nice to be in an atmosphere where there were people who were going through the same thing that we were.
Detox.
Yeah, so if nothing else, I mean, I think Pope has helped us get over a little bit of our PTSD that we've had with the NCAA tournament. But
you mean that Arkansas fans are enjoying now?
Right. So we'll see what happens this next week. But I'm going to be parked here Friday night. Probably have some friends over, and we'll watch this game. I am going to crack open. It was kind of funny because I had a friend who brought me some Wisconsin beer right before the game the other night on Sunday. It's Wisconsin beer. Cats were playing in Wisconsin, and to me that was an omen. So I saved the rest of the 6-pack. I had one during that game, so I feel like if nothing else, that beer is going to take Kentucky to the national championship.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save one for each game, and then I'll have one or two left over the night that we win it all, and I can just drink them all. So
and then you get to start the stadium seating.
Yeah, no kidding. I thought there was some thought. I'm off tomorrow, and I was like, man, am I going to have to throw together something to build my stadium seating for Friday night? We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. But we're drinking right now. We're enjoying from West Sixth over in Lexington. We are drinking their Kentucky Coffee Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Stout with coffee and vanilla. This is a beer they've done a couple different times. I'm a big fan of it. It's these days with barrel-aged imperial stouts, I feel like the goal for some breweries is just to put as much stuff in there as they can. They get thick and heavy. This one is a little bit more classic, old school imperial stout. It's not so heavy. The body's not so thick on it that you just feel like you can't drink a lot of it. But, man, it smells like a cup of fresh brewed coffee.
It's very, very good.
Yeah, it's
and I shouldn't be drinking it because
we're going to get some rest from this kidney stone tonight, whether he likes it or not, because this one is it's 12%, so it's a big boy. He doesn't drink much, so I purposely pour him smaller pours. But yeah, this one's awesome. It's got tons of vanilla flavor, lots of coffee, just kind of creamy. Their goal was like an Irish coffee. And I think they put this out every year around St. Patrick's Day. And I've actually been sitting on this bottle, obviously, for a couple weeks now. But,
not 2 years.
Good stuff. No, not 2 years. But, yeah, this one's really good, and I do enjoy it. They're always making good stuff. I'll probably try to get out this week and pick up a couple new things maybe from some of the other local breweries so that I'll have something different to talk about next week. They're doing some great stuff over at the Burl Brew on Manchester, so we may try to feature them this week. But I will say that West Sixth, every year they've been open. They've done a homebrew competition in Lexington, and what they do is they take the winner at the end and they scale up that batch and they brew that beer and sell it in their tap room. Wow. And I've been fortunate enough. West Six has been over there for 11, 12 years, something like that. And they've done it almost every year, and pretty much every year, but maybe one, I have gotten to help judge that competition. And we're gonna do the judging tentatively this year on Derby Day, which will be the first Saturday in May. So hopefully we'll get something fun to taste, in a couple months that is derived from a local home brewer. So
that's very cool.
Anyway, all right. Well,
my urologist did say, if I were you, I'd pound a couple of beers. I'm like, yeah, but these don't let me.
Well,
So here you go.
I mean, as a pharmacist, I would
Charles
tell you
Ray,
it's
this is for you.
it's not so much. It's more about knowing how to combine drugs and alcohol.
He really is a pharmacist. He really is. I had to call him last night to get some advice on, all right, I've got Percocet. I've got the good stuff here, Toradol.
Yeah.
And it's not taking the edge off the pain. Can I throw some Tylenol in there? So he's like, he's doing all the math for me.
Yeah.
So it was much appreciated.
Yeah,
But
and then ultimately,
he really is.
But ultimately, I did say, I'm being 100% honest with you at this point. You can throw a shot of bourbon on top of this to just try to get yourself some sleep, because you got to rest at some point. So
yeah, it's pretty brutal.
anyway, so we're hoping by the time we meet again, Steve will have conquered the kidney stone, either by his own
By hook or
fortitude or mechanical intervention is what we're looking
I
for
think
at
that's
this
gonna
point.
happen,
So yeah,
regardless.
so we can hope so anyway. But until then, everybody, put on your blue glasses and let's cheer for the Cats against the evil Tennessee Volunteers. In the words of Kaywood Ledford, God bless you and go kick Tennessee's ass.
That was my video.
I loved it. I loved it. I'm glad you reposted that because it's one of my favorite videos of all time. Which I think that particular pep talk that Kaywood gave, they actually lost that game, but the sentiment is still the same. The greatest radio voice of all time.
He did not
Kaywood
like that
Ledford.
it was broadcast because he didn't want anybody to know that he cussed.
Yeah, and one of the greatest radio voice of all time, without peer. So, but the sentiment definitely hits home for this week. So until next week, get out there and watch those NCAA games.
Go kick Tennessee's ass.
Listen to some music and eat some good food and drink some good beer. And we'll see you next time.